We will formally begin. Good afternoon and also good morning to everybody. We're very fortunate that we're working in a couple of different time zones today. We have partners and guests from Greenland, possibly Germany, and we're a smaller group, but we're recording this for the benefit of the rest of our partners and friends of the Creative Arts, Pedagogy and the Environment, the NORDPLUS sponsored program. And just to clarify, this is coming to you instead of the concept of mobility, we're having collaborative online international learning. COIL is the terminology that we are using. It's a very special opportunity today to have the Marine Research Institute from Klaipeda University with us. I can also say it's really the first time that we've had the formal opportunity to have evidence-based science partnership inside of this network that we have been building. We've had some informal relationships, for example, at our university with our environmental engineering research group and students from there. We've had the opportunity to meet with members of the Greenlandic Climate Research Center, but this really marks a very formal and wonderful opportunity for us to be working in a true cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary opportunities of working with our colleagues from Klaipeda. So I'm going to keep it short here. I will have a few announcements at the end about our upcoming next webinar, and I will just share with you that our first webinar, the Fern Orchestra, has received very, very positive feedback. So without much further ado, I turn it over to my colleague who at some point we will meet IRL in real life, Andreas. Andreas, the floor is yours. Thank you. Please turn microphones off.
Hello, everyone. I am really grateful for the opportunity to be here. Actually, this opportunity came very unexpected by being at the wrong place in the wrong time. But hopefully it will be a right place in the right time, because I really looking forward for this cooperation, and I really love the idea of connecting science and arts, and as probably you will see, there's a lot of connections between those two disciplines. So I'll start by briefly talking about our university and institute. So we are based in Klaipėda, Lithuania, and our university is actually located in very nice neo-Gothic campus built in early 1900s. And our institute is quite a modern building with a state-of-the-art laboratories. So it's sort of mix of really nice classics and modern days. And our university and institute is very closely related to the marine environment, to the sea. And this bond is strengthened by two research vessels. One is two-mast schooner, Brabander, which we do, with her we do research cruises in the Baltic or Northern Atlantic. And of course, we have a modern research vessel with hydroacoustic equipment and all biological equipment as well for state-of-the-art research in marine environment. Despite by that our institute, it's mainly focuses on research. We're very proud that we have also students in our institute, and we have all the ladder from the young student to the young researcher. So we have bachelor degree programs, biology and marine biotechnology, and more physical ones, so hydrology and oceanography. We have master's degree in ecology and environmental studies and marine hydrology. And we have the PhD studies in ecology and environmental sciences. And we also are not forgetting the younger ones, the school students. We have a program, Smart Sea, in which we invite students, school students to participate in laboratory works or in seminars, just to spread the word about marine environment in schools. And of course, hopefully in a year or two, we will establish a STEM center based in Klaipėda University, which we are very looking forward to. Of course, our main bread and butter is research, and we have several research groups across all the fields, from biological invasions, environmental genetics, benthic, plankton ecology, biogeochemistry, aquaculture, modeling, coastal and marine space planning, remote sensing, and more technical ones. And we work in very different environments. Mostly we work in the Baltic, in the Curonian Lagoon, which we are closest to. But usually we are always open and looking for opportunities to work in other ecosystems. We always love to work in the Mediterranean with colleagues from Italy and Croatia. We work and worked in all the seas of all the colors, starting from the Black Sea to Yellow Sea to White Sea. Red Sea is on our wish list still, but hopefully we will be there quite soon. And most recently, we went to the northernmost part of the Europe, in Arctic, in Svalbard, and I slightly talk about the things we do there. So our project is Arctic benthic ecosystems under change, the impact of the glaciation and boreal species transportation by macroplastic. This is bilateral cooperation between our institute and colleagues from Poland. And the general idea is that Arctic is melting, and there is no question about that. But we focus what happens when the glacials melt. So in theory, when the glacials melt, we say that they are retreating to the coast. So those retreated glacials, they leave behind empty spaces underwater. And these spaces are of our interest, and because empty space in the ecosystem doesn't stay too long, it is colonized by marine animals. And the problem is that in these conditions, knowing that the Arctic is getting warmer and warmer, these conditions are mostly suitable for invasive species or for species that are quite tolerant for very rough conditions. And when Arctic is not that Arctic anymore, it's more like boreal or warmer place. So these invasive species can do pretty much can do harm by establishing themselves in these places where the glacial retreats, and from there they could spread all around the Arctic. So, and the main vector of those invasive species could be plastic litter, which are sort of tiny islands across the ocean, and plenty of animals can attach to it and be transported to even to the remote Arctic, which is the case actually. And as you can see, we have many types of plastic floating around the Arctic, from fishing equipment to boxes and so on. So these places are are targeted by our research, and usually we do underwater filming to investigate those areas, and these images actually sometimes or most of the time are quite beautiful, if we could say that, and they eventually end up being underwater mosaics, which about this Saulė will give us a talk later on. These mosaics are quite fascinating, and today before this seminar, I thought that 100 years ago futurists tried to in the still image, in the painting, they try to paint or to show a movement. Now we do the opposite. We try to convert a video or a moving image into still image in this underwater mosaic, because it is better for our scientific purposes. But during this expedition, which took 2 weeks in the Arctic, it's a very nice guy from Polish colleagues, and this guy or this person is Kuba Witek, and he's an adventure filmmaker, and he's obsessed by northern places, Iceland, Faroe Islands, Greenland, Svalbard, and we got very lucky that he documented what we are doing in the Arctic, because usually researchers are very obsessed by their science, and they don't have time for collecting or collecting documentary or images about what they are doing. So we are very grateful that Kuba was with us, and I strongly recommend that you will visit his channels, and where you can see documentaries about Icelandic stories of Polish immigrants, about Faroe Islands, how common people are living there. His last documentary was about isolation in Faroe Islands. Actually, he went there for 2 weeks to shoot some nice pictures and got stuck for half a year because of COVID pandemic. And he during this time he made this documentary, and of course in his YouTube channel we can see the movie that I would like to show you today. This is about our research in the Arctic, and this movie premiered on Amazon Prime. So for those who would like to see this documentary for a second time, or those who will watch this as recorded video, I strongly recommend to watch it from the YouTube or Amazon, because of the HD quality, because the scenery and images are very fascinating. So yeah, without further ado, I would like to jump to this movie.
I just want to say one thing. I don't mean to interrupt, Andreas. Is it me, or I'm hearing somebody might have their microphone open? There's some ambient background noise. If you can all check to really turn off your microphones. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now I'll start to
David, we lost him, yes?
Yes, we have lost him. Hopefully he comes back.
I'm going to check if he's okay.
While we're waiting, I can just share with you all how I would say proud I am that we have this really phenomenal opportunity to have the collaborative future possibilities of working with our colleagues from the Marine Research Institute.
Andrews has a small problem. He needs to restart computer, and
Okay.
he will do, and we'll start again.
It's the Zoom world.
Technique.
And thank you, Renata, because Renata is our colleague who is the coordinator representative in the Cape Network from Klaipeda University, the Marine Research Institute. So I was just saying that we're very proud to have this partnership with you all. And when we get back to meeting in real life, it will be a great opportunity to bring both our teachers and our students together in interdisciplinary work.
At first, it's also very interesting, even we're a little bit scared at the beginning because we are more or less scientists and you are artists. So but it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I really enjoy it.
What I always say, we have X and Y, the graph X and Y, and X is change, and is it Y is time? You change over, well, that's exactly what we do. It's all connected.
I hope Andrews will manage soon.
So meanwhile, I want to say hello to everyone from Kuopio, Finland.
Hello.
Hi, Marco. Nice to see you. You have
You
great,
too, David.
You have great environmental work up there also, in Kuopio, Finland, as we do too.
Yeah.
We just need to get our friends across campus or in the other buildings, the environmental scientists on board. So we're using the Marine Research Institute as really our model of how we can work together.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm
Andreas.
very sorry.
No problem.
Someone just broke down, and I think my camera is the one that brings problems. So I'll try to turn it off.
Yeah, just make sure the audio function is clicked when you share.
Yes,
Okay,
I'll
great.
do now. Share sound, optimize for video, and share the screen, and hopefully it will be okay.
In July 2019, the Swedish weather station located north of the Arctic Circle recorded a temperature of 34.8 degrees Celsius. At the same time in New York, the temperature was 35 degrees. Shocking, isn't it? When you consider that in the same period of time, the range of the Arctic sea ice shrank to a size never seen before, you will see a more complete picture of the changes taking place. This is really happening. The glaciers are in a very bad condition. On the internet, you can find photos of hungry and exhausted polar bears facing the degradation of their natural habitat. The Arctic is melting. Every year, scientific expeditions from around the world study the changes taking place in the Arctic. This year, scientists from the Institute of Oceanology of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Sopot, in cooperation with Lithuanian researchers from the University of Klaipėda, took part in a project called Adamant. Its goal was to analyze the effects of glacier retreat on the ecosystem and biology of Western Spitsbergen. The Polish research vessel Oceania, belonging to Passio, has been visiting the Arctic regularly for over 30 years. This three-masted ship, built in 1985, was designed to withstand the toughest conditions. You will find devices made for conducting all sorts of scientific tests, from chemical and biological analysis, optical and acoustic measurements, to hydrographic surveys. After reaching the first measuring station in Gipsvika Bay, it's time for the research to begin. With the help of an underwater scoop, samples of the seabed are collected, along with all living organisms. The mud from the ocean floor is then inserted into the scrubber, where in streams of water, the organisms are separated by special fine sieves and placed in labeled containers. After the expedition, the samples are tested in a lab and compared with those from 30 years ago. The collection of the sediment core is another important test. Each layer of the sediment core, cut out and placed in separate container, corresponds to the period in which the mineral particles and dead organisms fell to the bottom of the ocean. 1 centimeter of sediment in the Spitsbergen fjord takes about a year to form. Scientists view the bottom of the fjord with a special drop camera. They are looking for any organisms that appear in places from which the glacier withdrew. The expedition leader and director of the Institute, Professor Jan Marcin Węsławski, is a specialist in the field of the sea coasts, trophic networks and crustaceans. Has been visiting the Arctic regularly since 1977, spending a total of over 45 months in polar countries. This allowed him to witness crucial man-made changes in this part of the world. During each trip to the mainland, you have to be attentive and focused. This is not an ordinary walk. Andrzej Kruszewicz, the director of the Warsaw Zoo, who is taking part in the Arctic expedition for the first time, is responsible for the team's safety. The chance of a direct encounter with a polar bear in this area is rather small, but you should always be cautious. The leader of the Lithuanian group, Sergei Olenin, finds many plastic items from various parts of Europe. For scientists, they are more than just rubbish. Large pieces of plastic can become vessels on which new organisms travel to the Arctic coast from warmer regions of the Atlantic.
No drifters.
Professor Wensławski is looking for the Atlantic gammarus under the coastal rock. The presence of this small crustacean, until recently only living in the warm Atlantic Ocean, is irrefutable evidence of climate change in the Arctic. For the second part of the expedition, we move on board the polar yacht Magnus Zaremba. This 17-meter yacht was designed to resemble the legendary Fram, built for Nansen and later used by Roald Amundsen. If trapped in ice, its hull, just like a cork, will jump to the surface to avoid being crushed. Eugeniusz Moczydłowski is not only a yacht captain with 40 years of experience. He is a doctor of biological sciences, a fauna researcher in Antarctica, and a long-time employee of the Polish Academy of Sciences. Magnus allows us to reach the wild, less accessible regions of Spitsbergen. Here, a group of Lithuanian scientists implement the next stage of the project. Thanks to the multi-beam probe on the ship's hull, the seabed is scanned for what is likely to appear here for the first time. In the evenings, Lithuanian researchers document the occurrence of plastic, describing and indexing the samples. During this time, other participants of the expedition are preparing a meal for the tired crew. Arctic glaciers react quickly to changing climatic conditions, which makes them important indicators of global warming. A temperature increase of only 1 degree centigrade, from 0 degrees to +1, causes the melting of large masses of ice. Some glaciers recede up to 500 meters every year. When glaciers, which stored fresh water for more than 2.5 billion people, disappear, the process will be irreversible and its effect dramatic. Collecting and analyzing samples is a tedious job, but this kind of work is necessary to understand the processes associated with global warming. The process of colonization of the Arctic by small organisms is one of the first symptoms of climate change. While field research is ongoing on land, the second part of the expedition prepares to work with the underwater robot. This robot explores the seabed after the glacier has subsided, along with the foreign organisms which began adapting to new conditions. The structure of the food chain is changing, and the consequences for the Arctic fauna are unknown. The Arctic is the kingdom of the polar bear. Traveling along the coast, every now and then we find traces of his presence, although meeting a bear eye to eye is increasingly difficult. The disappearance of sea ice forces drastic changes in the behavior of this endangered species. Ice is the bear's home. It is where they hunt, rest, and nurture their young. When the ice run out, the polar bear will disappear from the Arctic, having no access to seals, its most important food source. For now, you can still find various species of animals in the Arctic. All of them are worth protecting, but those living underwater deserve our special attention. While the land looks like a barren desert, what happens underwater resembles life in exotic warm seas. There is no doubt that the Arctic is melting. Although ice has consistently covered it for the last 800,000 years. What will the effects of global warming be? The consequences will be felt especially by future generations. Winters will become shorter. When the temperature rises, there will be heavy rainfalls causing flooding in many areas. There will be more avalanches and landslides. Weather phenomena will become more dramatic. Glaciers will continue to melt and seawater level will rise. Without the cold polar regions, the current world system will change. The overall effects are very difficult to predict. Will the temperature in Svalbard rise by 10 degrees by 2100? Professor Wensławski believes that it's likely. He is one of the people who have been experiencing climate change-related problems for many years. So much has changed since he was walking on the ice-covered surface of the Baltic Sea. Scientists are trying to tell the world about what they have known for many years. Shall we finally listen?
So thank you for watching. And I think that we should give a floor to Saulė now, and maybe we can discuss the movie and what Saulė would say in the latest part of this webinar.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Andreas, and we will come back to this at the end.
Okay.
So we will present Saulė. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. First of all, sound check. Do everyone hear me right? Okay, great. I will share my slides. Okay. So I'm Saulė Medelytė. I'm studying and working in Marine Research Institute. I'm studying my master's in ecology, and I'm working with underwater video mosaics and what we can and the information that we can get from them. I will present the topic underwater mosaics, a bridge between art and science. Probably when you hear world mosaics, you would probably think about some kind of picture like this. These were very popular in ancient Roman times and were done by collecting and putting together the colored stone, glass, or ceramic in one place. But of course, time goes by and there is modern mosaics, and personally, I'm a bit of a fan of Gaudi's work that you could possibly see in Barcelona if you've ever been there. And these are very strange forms and very beautiful buildings that he made. But also you can find mosaics in, if you ever walked in the southern part of Europe, I'm sure there is many of them in Spain, Portugal, I think in Italy and in Greece as well. I put this image because this image was done in Faro, Portugal. Faro is a seaside town near Portugal. This is where I went to do my Erasmus study. And this was, I think, the first step in making these underwater video mosaics. I came to Portugal with a question from my supervisor that you already met, Andrius, and he asked me how should I make mosaics from underwater video. And at that time I didn't know what is it, and I found some professor that was working with image processing at that university, and he couldn't help me, but I kept looking, and I found a lot of different softwares that were mostly made for landscape mosaicing, and possibly the most simplistic view to mosaicing would be panoramic view that I'm sure all of you can make nowadays with your phone. And it's just when you're moving your mobile phone through the horizon, holding camera very stable, the algorithms in the phone would produce this panoramic view. But probably the most common type of land mosaicing would be orthophotos, and they are done by drones. And basically, drones are taking a lot of pictures, many pictures, and then stitching them together. And here is also a work of my friend who is also working in Marine Research Institute. And in this mosaic, you can see Šventoji seaport gates. And I just want to show you the scale of one image in this mosaic, which would be about this size. So only in this all of this mosaic, you could probably count like more than 100, maybe 200 of these small squares. That would be one image. And the quality is very good. And because why I'm talking about the land mosaicing is because it's very different from what you can get underwater. And that's why it's basically not impossible, but it's very hard to make underwater mosaics by using this common land mosaicing softwares. It's also because every picture in this orthophoto has georeference data, which means that every picture has coordinates, and you can also stitch those images together by using these coordinates. And also the view is very clear. Nothing is disturbing. As you will see later, and as you could saw in the movie, underwater, usually there's colors are different. There's just few colors left of the spectrum, and also you could see so-called underwater snow, where organic matter after melting or some other factors are dropping, and you can see a lot of white dots underwater.
Sally, I hate to interrupt this fascinating presentation. Are you able to switch your, if it's PowerPoint, to the full screen, because we're seeing a quite small image?
Okay, I will try.
Thank you.
Now it's good. How is it now?
Perfect.
Ah, sorry, I thought you're seeing in the right way. Okay, so now let's go back to underwater video mosaics. So before talking about how these mosaics are made, I will tell you one thing about the video. So when you are filming something, you usually get actually filming, making a video is making a lot of pictures in the small amount of time. Usually now in 1 second, there is 30 pictures are made. So we call 30 frames per second. And when you're watching the video, you can see the difference when one frame is changing to another frame, because there's so many frames in 1 second. But when we are making underwater mosaics, there's no need to have all these frames, because the information in those frames are overlapping too much. And just to show you this, how is it looking? This is the video, also from Arctic, of the seabed of Arctic. And you can see Ophiuchus on the floor. But you can see that this video is moving very smoothly. Here is some fish and bivalves. And here you see the frames are lowered to 5 frames per second. And you can see, it seems like this video is lagging, but actually just the frames are lower. And I think this video is several seconds long. And for this video, I had 69 frames, 69 different pictures that you see here in transparent view. And after inputting these pictures, also there's some pre-processing and several other steps in between. But basically, when I input these images into the software, that software is looking for matching points in between those images, and then it makes this mosaic. But before getting to why I'm using underwater video mosaics, I want to talk about usual sampling techniques that are used. So as you saw also in the movie, there is one vine grab, cylindrical shaped box that is lower to the bottom. And when it is lowered, some things get attached because of the force, and then it closes and takes the sample of the seabed. And in that sample, you can see you can find some kind of organisms, animals living in there. There is other method. Then you have a stony bottom, because the previous method is used for a softer bottom. It's when scuba divers are going underwater and scrubbing everything that is on the little part in that frame, on that stone, what is living on that stone. And there is another method that is less abrasive, is using photo quadrats. And as you can see, diver put photo quadrats on the seabed floor, and usually these photo quadrats are also divided into smaller pieces. And then he either takes notes or takes a picture of that photo quadrat, and that analyzes when he comes back to the land. But these methods, some of them are only used when you have a bigger ship. So the depth has to be a bit deeper, so the ship could go to those places. And other method needs a bit shallower parts, so scuba divers can go in, but not all of the parts are available for scuba divers, and maybe there is some places in between, and that's where we would use underwater video mosaics. So these underwater video mosaics can also observe epibenthic fauna communities, and you can also see the structure of these animals living on the bottom. You can evaluate benthic habitats and map seabed surface. Also, underwater video mosaics can be used for benthos monitoring. This method is also, as you already suspect, is not harmful for marine fauna, and it could be used in places with hard availability, with big ships, or not accessible for divers. This is places in Spitsbergen where the video material was collected, and this is the material that I used for my master thesis. So we have 2 bays that are considered in the presence of melting ice, and 2 areas that are considered as being in ice-free areas. And in my master thesis, I want to see the difference between these different bays, what kind of organisms are living there. And also, I would like to see if there is any impact to those benthic communities of melting glacier. So first of all, when I collected all of these images, and since I didn't have any experience with Arctic organisms, I put all those images into, let's say, internet and online platform where specialists, taxonomists, people who were familiar with this fauna could help me with identification. And after this process, which took around, I think, 2 months, I put all of my produced underwater video mosaics into another platform, and then I marked every feature, every species to that identification level. Of course, I would zoom the mosaics, and you can see that every dot is marking every organism, and sometimes it's even hard to see those dots and what they are marking. But yeah, you have here, for example, sea star. So after this long work, you finally get a data sheet. But and this data sheet contains more than 30 different organisms, and you can see them here in the slide. You can see that they are very different between each other. And after quantifying all of these organisms, you can make, I made the statistical analysis, and I calculated diversity indexes. And these indexes, I'm not getting into that too deep, don't worry. These indexes are just showing the number of species in this space and the evenness of the species. Next, I divided all those organisms into several groups. There was functional groups of mobility and feeding mode. So the species that were very mobile, like you saw in my video before, and in those mosaics, you saw ophuras that are very motile species. And there is some species that are living on the stones that are attaching to the stone or to the surface, and they basically not moving all their lives. So these are sessile species, and there is species in between, and they are discretely motile species. And I also divided all those species in different feeding modes. So the detritus feeders, suspension filters, and so on, just to see if there is a difference between those bays in these functional groups. And what we would expect to see in this bays, the differences would be that in those bays that were, sorry, you see here the bays that are next to melting ice here, and on the lower part you see the bays that are in the ice-free areas. So what we would expect to see is that in the bays where ice scoring is present, there would be more mobile species. As I already repeat, those are ophuras here. And there is some fishes, and in the other bay there is some shrimps that are also mobile. And in the bays that are not affected by melting ice, where the ice is not present, we would expect to see more sessile species, like bryozoans, those green things and those white things, some polychaetes living in the tubes, bivalve siphons. But when you look into this image, you see that just by looking, maybe it's hard to distinguish the differences, because every bay is very different, and possibly there is much more factors, not only ice. But we can also look at one horrible statistical visualization. This analysis shows how similar are those bays. So after the analysis, we can indeed see that some bays like this are clustered in one part, which means that they are very similar, and these two bays are in the ice-free areas. And there's other bays that are clustered in the more in distant from each other. And from just by seeing at this thing, you can see that there's some differences between these bays, and sometimes those differences can confirm that indeed it could be the effect of melting ice. And to finish this, I would like to show one last picture, just for you to see, like, every picture here belongs to different bays, different places, and you can just by looking at these all pictures, you can see that there is a huge difference just color difference. Not even need to count to see that there is a difference between these communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sauli. We have still a couple of minutes to open up the floor for discussion or reactions. I'd like to just ask very directly, are any of these research materials in that what you're looking at with these species, are these invasive? Are any of these the invasive species, and was that one of the goals of your research?
In these stations that we were sampled, we didn't saw any invasion species, but in one we saw a type of a crab that is invasive, but we only saw it once. So there was one species that were.
Right. And can you define the difference between, I know the benthic ecology, the benthic is the lower aspect of the ocean, is that correct?
Yes, sorry.
And,
benthic species are the ones who are living on the
and
sea.
what is epibenthic and benthos?
Epibenthic is species that are living just on the surface, so they are visible. And there is also infauna that are living inside the sediment. So you can't see them, but you can if you take, for example, the grab sample, all the sediment, then in that sediment, you could see this species.
And the benthos?
A benthos is, in general, all the species that are living on the sea bottom.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very rigorous research that you're doing. And my only other question is, were you part of the expedition that went to Spitsberg, or is that your research is based on a lot of their findings?
Not yet. I haven't been there, but yeah, I'm just I was analyzing the video material that they brought.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Renee,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, Gerhard, go on, yes.
Yes, yeah, hi. The mosaic principle you showed us reminds me quite well that how sound is visualized. If we analyze sounds, and we use fast Fourier technology, and this is similar. So I just wanted to put it here as an to compare between visual approaches and sound approaches.
Yeah, thank you, Saula. I wanted to ask you that it seemed to me that you need to collect a lot of data. For how many years of those expeditions, video materials you have studied? Was it only 1 year or many years?
Now we have seen data collected in 2 years. but it's possible to see the difference because we are looking in those bays that are already affected by the ice, and in those places where it is ice-free areas, so we can compare.
And also, I would like to make just a comment that those colors were really, really beautiful, just amazing. And those are natural colors, and nothing has been reworked or remastered. Yes. Beautiful.
I actually once inputted one of these images in the Photoshop, and you can extract all the palette, the differences in the colors, and there's really a lot of colors, and they are so in sync that you can use. They are very nice to use in presentations or in other stuff because they are matching all together.
I also wanted to ask that, I don't know, maybe it's too early to ask, but even making the comparison between those 2 last years of expeditions, was it possible to see that the very last expedition you had more microorganisms recorded than before, or it was not the case?
No, it's not exactly that. I would say that the difference, I saw that in some bays there was less animals than in other bays. It could be melting ice effect. It could be just the location of those bays. It could be the presence of rivers nearby. So there's a lot of other factors. So I guess that's the fun in nature, that you can't say for sure what is happening.
I wanted to reflect a little bit about the Kuba Witek film presentation that was so powerful. We so often think of, or myself, we're not thinking about the depths of the oceans. And I thought as far as public information, climate information and presentation to the public, how powerful this documentary was. And it actually includes all the issues that we speak about in the Cape Network, because there's this remarkable cinematography, there's the collaboration with the sound designer, composer. It seems as it was a family affair as you looked at the credits rolling by. And I'm just curious, from Andreas, you were mentioning that you've given us the sources for the YouTube channels, but I think that's a really powerful presentation. So I thank you for that.
If I could comment that I think that you mentioned the powerful word, and that's where the art comes in, because when we scientists talk, we use statistical graphs. We usually cannot say for sure, because we use assumptions. It could be like this, it could be like that. We have probabilities, assumptions, and so on. And the artist, whether it's a documentary filmmaker, whether it's a writer, a journalist, or they are allowed slightly to dramatize, and I think for the melting Arctic, we should dramatize this thing as much as possible, because it's crucial for the planet. And scientists usually they are sort of reluctant to do that, but I think what Kuba made very clear that this movie is more impactful for general public than 100 reports of scientists and so on. So I think it's really nice cooperation between filmmaker and scientist, and that's why I think that the film is really impactful. And for me personally, whenever I watch it, I feel somewhat astonished about the whole thing. So
I think it will be required viewing for all of our teachers and participants and students inside the CAPE network. In a absolute parallel focus, I've been looking at an organization in the UK called Cape Farewell, and their director, David Buckland, I will quote him, it's basically exactly what Andreas says. He says, "Science and climate change is fiendishly complex, and what the artist can do is to take the global abstract notions and somehow craft them into a narrative, a story on a human scale." So I think that's, again, another focus goal point inside of the CAPE network. Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you so much, Sauli. Any other comments or any other discussions from anybody else? Well, this has been recorded. This will be distributed to our CAPE partners and others who have been following the webinars. I want to thank the Marine Research Institute at Klaipeda University sincerely, Andreas and Sauli, for their important presentation and contributions today. And I will just tell you that you'll be receiving information. We've just confirmed the date for our next webinar, which will be on April 22nd, presented by the dance students from Tina and Renee's program at Tallinn University on a very important community-based arts and evidence-based project that they will speak more about. I will have more information about that. But unless there's no other comments, we will say goodbye for today. And once again, thanking everybody for participating. And I will be distributing the YouTube link for this presentation in the next day or so. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.